Hey everyone, welcome back to the Anderson Bros Outdoors. I'm Jake, and today you can see what we've got going on. Alright, so today you can see that we have three bodies here. We have a Phoenix RTR body, a Basecamp body, and a TRX4 Sport body. We're going to do the shootout between the three of these stock trucks. Before we get into the video though, there's some things I would like to address. For the Phoenix, I used the beat up red body on the truck. It is 100% stock Phoenix RTR. I just didn't want to beat up this gray body yet, so I did stick the red Phoenix RTR body on it for the run. Note that all three of these trucks are 100% stock. The Basecamp and the Phoenix RTR are my trucks, and then the TRX4 Sport is Colton's truck. The only thing that is different out of the packaging in between any of these three trucks is the TRX4 Sport has the front and the rear bumper removed. And I think that you'll note in this footage that that's almost a hindrance in some spots, but we'll get to that. The entire purpose of this video is really just to get some footage of all three trucks in action right out of the box and get an understanding of their capabilities and how well they perform. Now, one thing I will note is that the Phoenix RTR is locked into overdrive. So the other two trucks don't have that option from the factory. So I did enable it in the Phoenix RTR because it's there, so I'm going to use it. The price point on these trucks is $489.99, I think. For the Phoenix, the prices will be right here. I think it's just under $500, just under $400, and another just under $400. So these trucks are really more in the same price category. However, I think that this truck, after you have to add the aftermarket parts to these trucks to make them perform as good as this one, you're better off probably just purchasing the Phoenix RTR. We're going to do some obstacles today. Just note that in every obstacle, I did try numerous times if the truck wasn't able to succeed, but I'm not going to show all of the attempts or failures of the vehicle in the footage, otherwise we'd be here all day. If the truck was able to do it, I posted it up. If the truck was not able to do it, then I just posted the first failure where the truck fell over. Some things to note: I'm not an expert. I had Colton with me, and then one of his friends. So I was driving the Phoenix, Colton was driving the TRX4, and then his friend was driving the Basecamp. Just note that there were multiple attempts with each truck, with each person. So for example, if I wasn't able to successfully complete it with the Phoenix, I would give the remote to Colton to make sure that we had a unbiased, fair shakedown of all three vehicles if the obstacle was not performed by the first person. The goal here is not to be biased to one vehicle or another. The goal is to showcase the capabilities of each truck so that way you can decide which truck you want to purchase. And then at the end, I will obviously give my spiel about what I would purchase, but my opinion doesn't matter to you, right? You should be the one deciding based off of the footage and based off of what you feel the upgrade path will be. So before we get into the footage, let's just talk about the upgrade path. So we know the upgrade path of the Phoenix RTR. I've done videos on that. I built the Rock Pirate chassis into the Phoenix RTR and all of the things on Thingiverse. The links in the description below. And it is an absolute crawl master. A very, very good truck. You know, it keeps up with the best of them. The Basecamp, so the predominant purchase for the Basecamp is to do the same thing. And actually, in a coming video, you'll see that I did place a Rock Pirate chassis in the Basecamp. So you can purchase the Basecamp for, I think it's $389.99. Buy a Rock Pirate chassis for $75, and then 3D print the parts you need, and you can use everything else from the factory in the Basecamp with the Rock Pirate chassis, including the body. Really, really cool. And then finally, the TRX4 Sport. I couldn't use my TRX4 Sport because it's no longer stock in any form or fashion. It does have the -G TCV1 chassis in it, and so I wanted to keep this as stock as possible. The mod track for the TRX4 Sport, though, is pretty crazy. I think these two trucks have the biggest aftermarket support being that they've been around longest, and so you can pretty much do anything you want if you have an unlimited budget. I know some people are running 20-pound Traxxas trucks to try and get that advantage or edge, if you will. And then the Axial has the same components, or shares most of the same components in terms of chassis, suspension, geometry, things of that nature, as the original SCX10. They've just continuously made it better over the generations and added things like portals and things of that nature. Most of the parts, outside of axle differences and some chassis differences and transmission differences, most of them are interchangeable. So anything that you had for the SCX10, like links or, whatever the case, is likely to fit the Basecamp. So let's dig into the video. I will provide some commentary after every obstacle, so that way I can showcase or provide a little bit of insight for that obstacle. All right, so we'll call this obstacle 1. It's one of my favorite obstacles. It's got this hole you can see here you have to traverse through, or above, hover over, whatever you want to call it, to get to the base rock. From the base rock, there are a couple of rocks with kind of like a valley that you have to traverse, or choose your line wisely, I guess, up to a third rock, and then finally the fourth rock on top. It is a lot of fun. I spent probably 15 minutes trying to get the truck up this line. This is the first failure, if you will, but there are probably 6 or 7 more attempts after this that it wanted to so bad, but it just couldn't make it. You can see here the tires are less than adequate pulling it up the other rock. I was not impressed with the tires at all. You can see it rolling over. The bumpers are a pretty big hindrance. Moving into the Phoenix, you can see here that the Phoenix is getting stuck in the same spot as the Axial. We had to reset it because it fell into that hole. It is going up the line of choice here. You can see that it is looking very effortlessly doing it. The Phoenix is just so much fun to drive. Even with the stock tires, these Falcons are way better. They're a lot softer compound than the Axial tires, and so they have a lot better grip to them. You can see the overdrive doing its job and just sucking it right up onto that rock. And the obstacle has been completed. Here, Colton is attempting to do the obstacle with his TRX4 Sport. He does.
Seems like there's a rock.
He's trying to make it through the hole. Has to do a reverse. Doesn't really matter. The Axial and Vanquish both had issues there, so he gets through there.
Up over this way.
The turning radius of the TRX4 Sport sucks, as you can see. We did choose a poor line going up there, and those tires do hook. So if you are hoping that your tire slides around, it's not going to, because the stock TRX4 tires work fantastically. We might have found a decent line here. One thing to note is that Colton was able to do this with his front and rear bumper on, and you can see that he's not able to do it now. So my assumption here is that rear bumper actually elevated him slightly and allowed that front to hook. Moving right into obstacle 2 here, we have this little climb up to the obstacle. We'll call this obstacle the Dragon's Back. The goal of the obstacle is, as you can see on the left of this screen, there's a huge rock that is at a point and it goes up. You have to hook your left or driver's front tire on that ridge and follow it all the way up, like I'm trying to do here. Just like that. The bumpers are kind of in the way, at least the rear bumper is kind of in the way. That hole there on the passenger side is really detrimental to anything being able to actually complete this challenge. I think we spent probably 45 minutes to an hour here between all 3 trucks. Just get that You can see that the biggest issue here is that there's not enough weight in the front to keep it sucked down, and it just wants to float. And so you can see that this truck was not able to do that. Moving on to the Phoenix RTR. I'm driving both of these trucks at this time. Let's see if the Phoenix RTR can give it a shot. Do a quick reverse, couple of quick reverses, and let's go. Oh, immediately falls over. I did attempt that about 15 times, and it was not successful. I'm just not going to put that on camera. Moving into the TRX4, again, lots of attempts here. It is unsuccessful. I think that if Colton had the front bumper there, he might have made it. This will be obstacle 3. It's not really a hardcore obstacle. It's just something that we ran across, and it looked like it was fun to do, so we did it. We did have a malfunction here. You can see the battery does fall out of the Basecamp, so we fixed that and move on. There was some poison oak or ivy on the other side of this stuff, so Colton didn't want to run through that. And then we line up for a race. 1, 2, 3, go. Clearly the Traxxas is the fastest, and the Basecamp and the Phoenix are pretty neck and neck. Note, all 3 trucks are on 3S. This is the 4th obstacle. This is one of my favorite obstacles to do. It is the V-neck. So basically the objective here is to go and crawl up this V. You have to go really slow, and you have to start with either your driver or passenger tire. Otherwise, a 13.3 wheelbase will try and flip over. So you grab one side, and then once you load that side, you can then grab the other side. You'll be able to see that here in a minute. The biggest detriment here is that I have that passenger rear in that hole, and it's keeping me from being able to go forward. That back tire, that back passenger falls into that hole. Once I get resituated here, it is very apparent what I'm talking about. So I hook the driver front, I compress it, and then I'm able to, or I put load on it, if you will, and I'm able to suck the truck up. The issue is I run out of clearance, belly out, and fall over. So the TRX4 Sport has not ever done this. It does have a chance now that it doesn't have any bumpers, and so we'll see if it's able to successfully complete the climb. It is not. The Basecamp, I can already tell you, is not going to, based off of the other 2 trucks, but we'll give it a fair shake and see if it's able to make it happen. 4 or 5 attempts later, we finally fall over. This is obstacle number 5. It is basically just a little V climb above the previous V climb we just did. As you can see, the Phoenix is kind of struggling to get up it. Finally makes it. The Basecamp on its first try was unsuccessful. We do swap drivers here in a moment. The TRX4 Sport, not having a lot of problems, makes it through. And then moving back to the Basecamp here, it does finally make it successfully after we do a driver swap or driver mod. Remember, none of us are experts, so it is what it is. Obstacle 7 here is actually pretty fun. It is a series of rocks stacked on top of each other, and you've got to climb the rocks while not falling over backwards or bellying out. The Phoenix RTR did this effortlessly, and now we're trying it with the Traxxas. Oh, it looks like the Traxxas might make it, and it doesn't. It falls over. Moving into the base camp.
Angle left a little more on that one. Yeah, we'll go slow.
We'll back up and give it another shot here. Oh, it looks like it's going to be successful. The Basecamp is just such a light truck. It's the lightest of the three by far.
See if it'll crawl.
Unfortunately, I don't have any weights on them. I'd like to have that information, but I don't. Back up and attempt a third shot here. And we roll over. So we driver swap. Colton takes the reins here. Does a little bit of throttle manipulation to slow it down some. See if we can get the climb that way. And these medium or hard compound Falcons just aren't doing it. So we switch up the line a bit.
I'll still you put the wheels on them too. So the mud claws or whatever off the nut.
And then finally, when in doubt, just throttle it out.
See what it does. The TRX4? Yeah.
Maybe the third or fourth line is the charm. Oh, I was looking very promising there for a second. Again, we swap drivers on the TRX4, and when we do that, we have no problems. Final driver swap on the Axial Basecamp. I think I'm driving it this time, and yeah. I'm able to successfully just, when in doubt, throttle out and go. So this is the same obstacle going in reverse, obviously. We about tipped it over, but we saved it. Let's see if we can get it up here, and this looks pretty sketchy. Are we able? Oh yeah, we're able to get the driver front to hook, and it just crawls or pulls itself right up there. Very, very impressive for the Phoenix. The TRX4 Sport has a little better chance than the Basecamp due to its not having bumpers. It really, really wants to grab, and it does. Pulls it right on up there. The Axial, it's going to take a little different line here and see if it can do it. The bumpers are going to be in the way, and just like that, the Axial was able to make it happen.
Left turn ability on that thing sucks too.
Obstacle 7 or 8, I don't know which one we're on now. This one is a lot of fun. You have to come at it from an angle like this. This is the first time I've ever gotten it in one go, so kudos to the Phoenix RTR. You really need to get both tires on and then hook real hard passenger to crawl up that face. Bring up your passenger or driver rear tire, and then your passenger rear will follow.
Oh, the wind ain't making that big a difference.
As you can see, we're on the third attempt and the third driver swap for the Basecamp. This is probably 25 minutes later.
These tires just suck so bad.
And just like that, we crawl right up it.
Doing pretty much everything these are doing so far.
Fortunately, it doesn't finish the obstacle as it rolls over. So obstacle 8 or 9 here is a V. You have to essentially crawl the V and get up and over. I tried very hard for a long time to get this to work, but it just doesn't end up working out, so. Moving on to the Phoenix. Get her lined up how we want it. And it effortlessly just crawls right on up there. Look at that. Colton's going to give it a shot with the TRX4 here. Didn't like that line. Let's back up, try it again. So we tried several times with both the Basecamp and the TRX4 Sport here. The second obstacle that the Phoenix was able to complete versus the other two not able to complete. Moving into obstacle 10 here. This is simply just a little crawl. Well, two little crawls. The first one is pretty easy. The second one is relatively hard. It does have a huge angle and it does create a lot of incline. You can see that it rolls the base camp over. And Colton kind of jumps the gun there with the TRX4 while I'm trying to climb the second obstacle. As you can see, it's got a lot of slope and it is angled in such a way that makes it very difficult for any of the trucks to climb it. Moving back to Colton, he was not very happy about that. He had just completed that obstacle and then he tried it again and fell over. So I'm going to leave it in the footage. I think it's funny because he fails twice there. Then I take over the Phoenix and I drive it right up there. You can see the second obstacle is rather challenging. I should have squared up a little bit better to it and made the rear, push the rear over to the right some, but I didn't. And you can see here just how steep and much of an incline that it makes. With that passenger rear tire sucked into that hole, it is not very conducive to the climb, but I'm still going to give it a shot. However, it's not going to make it, so I just move on by. Giving the TRX4 a third shot. Let's see if it can make it. It does finally climb up with ease. Welcome back. So you saw the footage, you saw the runs, everything was as unbiased as possible. Not that that matters, we're here just to have a good time and showcase what the capabilities of these vehicles are with non-expert drivers. So keep that in mind. We really tried to make it the best and most unbiased experience as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to keep the review short. All three of these trucks perform very good in specific situations and then, not so good in other situations. The footage shows. I think the overall top pick in my mind will always be the Phoenix RTR. And I know it's probably not a shocker at this point, but for the money, the performance out of the box is just phenomenal. It is a awesome truck. The next truck I would probably go with is the Axial Basecamp. So the reason that I say that is because the Axial Basecamp has more modifications tailored to what I want. So for example, I want a 40 to 50% overdrive in the front. Well, with the Axial Basecamp, I can purchase overdrive gears for the portals, and I can also purchase an overdrive diff gear, which will give me that 40 to 50% overdrive that I'm looking for. Overdrive helps significantly, especially if you're adding a hard body or any kind of weight to the top. It really helps suck the truck down, load the suspension better or keep it loaded, and drag the truck or pull it up obstacles. And I think that that's a huge key to success. And where the Traxxas fails in that department is they do have overdrive gears for the front and underdrive gears for the rear. It's only like a 27% total overdrive for it, is that the rear is trying to push too hard. So as the rear pushes, right, it makes the front want to come back and it just doesn't have the climb that I want it to have. I'm going to pick the Axial Basecamp over the TRX4 Sport specifically for the aftermarket support reasons. I know that there are a lot of aftermarket support for the TRX4 Sport, but I feel like the axles are a huge limiting factor for the truck. They are portal axles, just like the Basecamp, and that's another thing, right? So this Phoenix RTR doesn't have portals, it has a straight axle. It's out competing, going blow for blow with these two portal trucks as a straight axle truck, which is super impressive. Digress. Just the axles alone, I think, are what limit the TRX4 Sport. It doesn't have the capabilities that I want it to have in terms of overdrive, and really that's a huge deal for me. The TRX4 Sport would obviously be last, and we're talking purely purchasing for rock crawling. I'm not talking about trailing, I'm not talking about doing anything else. So this is for rock crawling purposes only. I would pick the RTR, the Basecamp, and then the TRX4 Sport for the reasons that I've listed previously. Now, for trailing, I would probably pick the TRX4 Sport first, the Phoenix RTR second, and then the Axial Basecamp last. Let's dive into quality of the trucks. So I think I've discussed this many times, but the quality really is these two contenders here. So Vanquish made its bread, or made its organization, company, whatever, right, building upgrades for Axial. Anything that comes in the Axial, you can probably purchase from Vanquish to upgrade your product or your truck, and it will be better. In terms of quality, I would say the Vanquish is the best quality, followed by the Traxxas. So the Traxxas does have some really good quality control, and I would say that really what makes the Traxxas a very good performer are the stock tires. The stock Canyon Trails are they're unbelievable for a stock truck. In terms of trailing, you know, that's really 50-50. If you want to have overdrive and dig at your access, you want the Phoenix. If you want a very well-rounded truck, you'll get the TRX4 Sport. Now we could bump it up and say you can get the TRX4 regular or high trail editions, which come with a 2-speed transmission and then locking differentials. And so you can lock or unlock the front and rear diffs, and then you can also select first and second speed. That would be more comparable price to the Phoenix. And for a trail truck, I would go with one of those two, either a regular TRX4 or a TRX4 high trail versus any of these trucks here. The quality, I think, goes to Vanquish, followed by Traxxas, followed by the Axial here. Really, that brings me to the conclusion of, so if I were just getting into RC, I spent a lot of time researching what I did, and the first thing I went for was the Vanquish. The reason for that is everybody has an opinion, and most opinions, if you do a mass evaluation of them, most opinions came back that the Vanquish was the best truck, and indeed I think it is. I would purchase the Vanquish, followed by the Basecamp, followed by the TRX4, strictly for rock crawling. I hope that you enjoyed the footage. Thank you for making it this far. Please like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell, you know, the little ding bell thing, yeah, so that way when we do have a new video come up, you can watch it or not. But we appreciate you making it this far and all of the continued support from the community, and we hope that you have a great day.